Defend yourself against DDoS attacks by hiding your true IP address with ExpressVPN, and visit my custom link expressvpn.com/ghilliemaster in the description to find out how you can get an extra 3 months free. The very long-awaited Oppressor Mk nerf is finally here, and in this video I'll be discussing exactly what changed with the Oppressor Mk and if it is enough to truly impact the game going forward. So the first thing that was nerfed heavily are the countermeasures. Both the flare and chaff capacity were cut in half on the Oppressor Mk, so it can now only hold 10 flares and 5 chaff at a time, compared to before where it could hold 20 flares and 10 chaff. What's even a bigger change than that though are the cooldowns of using those countermeasures. Before the nerf, the Oppressor Mk could fire flares off every 3 seconds and fire the chaff off every 10 seconds, which was the equivalent to actual aircraft countermeasures. And assuming they're using chaff, this only left a window of 4 seconds for you to get a lock on the bike before firing a missile its way for the kill. Because chaff blocks the lock on for 6 seconds, and if there's a 10-second cooldown, then that only leaves 4 seconds of vulnerability. But now, instead of that 4-second window, the Oppressor Mk has to wait a whopping 20-second cooldown between chaff uses, which leaves them vulnerable to missiles for 14 seconds. A big difference there. Alternatively, if they have flares, they can be deployed once every 10 seconds after the patch, which on an Oppressor Mk you don't really want to be using them anyways, because if you're getting attacked by missiles that could actually harm you on an Oppressor, flares wouldn't be able to save you because they'd be spamming missiles your way, which is exactly the reason why everyone uses chaff on the Mk. The other aspect of the Oppressor Mk that was nerfed was the missile tracking. That's right, the missiles are now less accurate, but by how much exactly were they changed? I set up this little experiment to test different vehicles' missile tracking. Basically, we're testing how much the rocket is willing to turn to catch its target by putting each vehicle in the exact same spot and firing at steep angles to see the differences in the rocket trajectory. Better tracking missiles will be able to turn and hit the Night Shark a vast majority of the time. Meanwhile, worse tracking missiles will end up turning too wide and fly right by the vehicle. Starting off with the buzzard here, on the midline, even they have a tough time hitting the Night Shark doing a very wide right turn. And when we move even closer to the Night Shark, the missiles don't even get close to turning towards the Night Shark. They almost don't even make an attempt to turn at all. Then we have the Mk Oppressor, and the Mk missiles have a much higher tendency to turn and hit their target from the midline here than the buzzards do, and even more so when we get closer to the target, they make some pretty sharp turns to try to hit it. And now testing the Mk missiles after the nerf, at the midline they have absolutely no problems hitting at that wide of a turn, but once we get closer and put the Mk test next to the Mk test, you can see that the Mk actually has a much easier time hitting the target than the Mk does. So we can come to the conclusion that the nerfed Mk missiles aren't nearly as bad as buzzard missiles, but they aren't as accurate as the Mk missiles either. They seem to fall somewhere in between, while leaning more on the Mk missile side than buzzard missiles, I would say. The next thing we did was run some real test scenarios, mainly with helicopters, because before this nerf, helicopters stood no chance against the Broomstick Boys. You had to get extremely lucky to win a Mk engagement, so I wanted to see, could you actually survive in a helicopter and maybe potentially win a Mk engagement with this nerf? Yeah, they're definitely less. They can't track as well, that's for sure. Like if we had a hunter with a gunner, we'd probably beat a Mk every single time.
Yeah, I'm going down.
Yeah, they definitely don't U-turn as often. Like, you can dodge them quite easily. Oh, what the hell? That was laggy.
Oh, what the heck? That lagged. I shot the missile, it passed you, and it just randomly blew up.
Got him.
Oh, nice.
While I still think the Mk has the advantage in a fight against something like the Hunter still, just because of its small size, it's now possible to dodge the Mk rockets fairly consistently as a helicopter pilot. As long as you're not too far above the Oppressor and you position yourself well enough, dodging their missiles is kind of easy. However, if this new Mk went up against something like the Toreador or the Deluxo, I think the fight would sway heavily in the Toreador and Deluxo's favor, which is very good. It means there's more reliable counters to the bike now. Another thing that I wanted to test was how Oppressor Mark II mirror matches would go with the new tracking on the missiles. So I grabbed a group of friends and we had a gigantic Mark II free-for-all. Alright, go! Free-for-all.
Bro. How did I not get hit? I didn't even have to use any.
Oh, I got Ender, I got Ender.
Shit.
Oh shit, oh shit!
Oh shit.
To my surprise, it was actually kind of enjoyable. I assumed that no one was going to be able to hit each other because of the worst tracking combined with the nimbleness of the Mark II, but I actually got a couple of kills, which I didn't expect at all. It's much better than before, where if two Mark II users went head-on, the person who didn't pop chaff basically just lost, or they would just trade every time. That's what would happen. Well, now there's actually a fight that can take place. In case you're wondering, yes, those are the only two things that were nerfed on the Mark II Oppressor. I had a before and after copy of the Oppressor Mark II weapon files to check if there were any other differences to things like the lock-on range, damage, blast radius, max range, and there was not. All of the changes they made to the Mark II were done behind the scenes, hard-coded. And now comes the tough question, is the nerf that Rockstar implemented enough of a nerf? Personally, I think it might be a tad bit on the light side. I think maybe a small blast radius nerf could have been in order to make it a bit harder to use against players on foot, because upside down flight still works with this. So with that upside down flight, it can still be abused. And the other thing that I would have done was made it so that if the Oppressor Rider hits something at a fast speed, they actually fall off the bike instead of just bouncing off of it. The Oppressor Mark II is most likely still going to be extremely common in PvP, and in PvE, it's still going to be one of the best vehicles to grind with. But engaging in vehicle combat against the Mark II Oppressor should be a lot less aggravating after the nerf. Now I'm going to go ahead and transfer the question to you guys. How do you feel about the Oppressor Mark II nerf? Do you believe more should have been done, or are you happy with the current results? Let me know down in the comments. If you enjoyed the video or found it helpful, feel free to leave a like, as well as subscribe to my channel for more GTA Online content. Soon we're going to be talking about that precision rifle, and well, I don't know if we'll be talking about it, maybe we'll be screaming about it. So definitely stay tuned for that. I want to give a huge shout out to all my channel members for your support. If you'd like to become a member for some exclusive perks, you can either use the join button or the link that's down in the description. And as always, thanks for watching and have a great day.